Hi everyone and welcome back to another video where I'm going to be continuing my series on murderers who were jailed in a specific month of the year in England, looking in this video at the month of February 2025. Now the format for those not familiar with my videos is that I will briefly outline the facts of the case, I'll talk about the victim, and then I'll talk about the sentence that was awarded. And this is not a definitive list from the month of February 2025. I've selected 12 cases involving 15 individuals and I will tell you what sentences they got. Welcome to my channel, Andy on Crime, where I talk about high profile criminal cases and other aspects of criminal law. Now, if you do want to support my channel, then you can do so by clicking the link in the description and signing up with NordVPN, where you can get discounts on their plans. And one final thing to say, and those of you that are familiar with my channel will have heard me say this before, everyone in England and Wales that is convicted of murder, that's either pleading guilty or being found guilty after a trial, will get a mandatory life sentence. The only question is how long the minimum term or tariff will be. The individual that's been given a tariff will then have to serve that in full before they are eligible to apply for release. It's only if they satisfy the parole board that they're safe to be released that they will do so. There's no guarantee that that will happen. In rare cases, an individual can be given something called a whole life order. And at the time of recording, there's about 77 to 80 people currently serving that sentence. But in this video, I'm only going to be focusing on people who have been given minimum terms or tariffs. With all that being said, let's get into the video. At number 1 is Christopher Stockton, who was sentenced on the 7th of February. In January 2024, 22-month-old Charlie Roberts suffered a fatal head injury whilst under the sole care of his mother's partner, 38-year-old Stockton, at their home in Darlington in England. Stockton claimed that Charlie had choked on a biscuit, but medical professionals found no evidence of such choking. Instead, they determined that the toddler had sustained severe head trauma consistent with being shaken or thrown. Charlie was transported to Newcastle's Royal Victoria Infirmary, where sadly he died the following day. Investigations revealed a troubling history of abuse prior to Charlie's death. Over several months, the child had suffered multiple injuries, including bruises to various parts of his body. Despite these signs, his mother, 41-year-old Paula Roberts, failed to seek medical attention. She even had a hidden camera installed in Charlie's bedroom due to concerns about Stockton's behaviour, yet continued to leave her son in his care. During Stockton's trial at Teesside Crown Court, prosecutors argued that he had violently shaken or thrown Charlie, leading to his fatal injuries. They highlighted that Stockton had been sleep deprived, having stayed up late playing video games the night before the incident. Stockton denied the charges, maintaining that Charlie's injuries were accidental. The jury found Stockton guilty of both murder and child cruelty, with Paula Roberts also pleading guilty to child neglect during the trial, acknowledging her failure to act upon the evident signs of her son's abuse. On the 7th of February, Stockton was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. At number 2 is Simon Vickers, who was sentenced on the 10th of February. In July 2024, Vickers, a 50-year-old resident of Darlington, County Durham, fatally stabbed his 14-year-old daughter Scarlett in their home. Vickers claimed that the incident occurred during a playful interaction in the kitchen, where they were allegedly throwing items at each other. He asserted that he had accidentally stabbed Scarlett while swiping a kitchen knife during this playfight. However, forensic evidence contradicted Vickers' account. A pathologist testified that the 11-centimetre deep stab wound to Scarlett's chest could not have resulted from a playful scenario. The expert concluded that the injury required significant force, indicating that the knife was firmly gripped when it penetrated her chest. During the trial at Teesside Crown Court, it was revealed that Vickers had consumed alcohol and cannabis on the day of the incident. Despite his claims of a freak accident, the jury found inconsistencies in his account. Vickers had provided varying accounts of the event, further undermining his defence. He was found guilty, and on the 10th of February, Vickers was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 15 years. The judge acknowledged Vickers' lack of premeditation, but emphasised the severity of his actions and the irreversible impact on Scarlett's life. Scarlett's mother, Sarah Hall, who was present during the incident, maintained her belief that Vickers did not intend to harm their daughter. Despite the conviction, she and other family members continued to support Vickers, describing him as devastated by the loss. At number 3 is Jaden Sheriff, who was sentenced on the 14th of February. On the 26th of February 2024, Sheriff fatally stabbed Robert Watson in the heart following a dispute involving Sheriff's ex-girlfriend, Jade. The altercation took place at a residence on Hamilton Crescent, where Watson was pronounced dead at the scene due to a 12-inch wound that punctured his heart. The conflict began 3 days prior when Sheriff told Jade that he needed to have sex because he had blue balls. Jade confided in her neighbour Robert Watson, who advised her that Sheriff's claim was false, leading to an argument between Sheriff and Robert. On the morning of the fateful incident, Sheriff messaged Jade stating that he was coming over to apologise. However, upon arrival, he followed Robert into his home, where a violent confrontation ensued. During the altercation, Sheriff began punching and insulting Robert in his bedroom, while Robert pleaded not to be hurt. Jade attempted to intervene, but Sheriff pulled her away, ripping out her hair extensions in the process. Sheriff then stabbed Robert twice before the victim left the house, collapsed, and then died in the street. Following his arrest the next day, Sheriff claimed in a prepared statement that Robert had been spying on his ex-girlfriend and had threatened to stab him with a vegetable knife. Sheriff asserted that he had acted in self-defense during the incident. However, this was contradicted by Jade's evidence and text messages leading up to the stabbing. On the 14th of February 2025, having been found guilty, Jaden Sheriff was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 19 years. At number 4 is David Newton, who was sentenced on the 14th of February. In January 2013, 86-year-old widow Una Crown was found dead in her home in Cambridgeshire. Initially, authorities attributed her death to a heart attack resulting from an accidental fire, as her body had been partially burned. However, a post-mortem examination later revealed that she had suffered multiple stab wounds to her neck and chest, prompting a murder investigation. The initial investigation faced significant challenges, as the police had failed to recognise the scene as suspicious, leading to a 2-day delay in preserving crucial evidence. This oversight was later acknowledged as a grave error of judgment by the officers involved. Despite interviewing several suspects at the time, including Newton, who was a neighbour who had admitted to knowing Mrs. Crown in passing and having previously assisted her with a door lock, no charges were filed against anyone at the time. A breakthrough occurred in 2023 when advancements in forensic technology allowed for the re-examination of DNA evidence. Scientists tested nail clippings from Mrs. Crown's right hand, using techniques unavailable during the initial investigation. The analysis revealed male DNA matching Newton's profile, and this discovery led to his arrest and the subsequent charge of murder. During the trial, the prosecutors presented evidence that Newton had been seen walking away from Mrs. Crown's home on the evening of her death. Further investigations revealed that Newton had a copy of her backdoor key, which he had made after assisting her with the lock months earlier. Despite his claims of being a limited acquaintance of Mrs. Crown, the DNA evidence under her fingernails and his proximity to the crime scene were pivotal in securing a conviction. And on the 14th of February 2025, Newton, who was then 70 years old, was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. At number 5 is Logan Burnett, who was sentenced on the 17th of February. In August 2024, 27-year-old Burnett murdered his ex-girlfriend, 26-year-old Courtney Mitchell, in Ipswich in Suffolk. The attack occurred in broad daylight on Burrell Road, where Burnett chased down Courtney and fatally stabbed her in front of her friends and members of the public. Despite immediate assistance from paramedics and bystanders, Courtney succumbed to her injuries at hospital. Prior to the murder, Burnett had engaged in a campaign of harassment against Courtney following their breakup. This included physical and verbal abuse, threats to kill, and causing a flood in her home. On the day of the attack, Burnett attempted to contact Courtney 22 times within 5 hours and made threats to her friends. CCTV footage captured him walking from his home towards the town centre, leading up to the fatal encounter. After the attack, Burnett fled the scene but was arrested the following morning. Upon his arrest, Burnett inquired if Courtney had died and later admitted to the murder whilst he was in custody. On the 17th of February 2025, Burnett was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 25 years. And Courtney's mother, Samantha Mitchell, expressed that her daughter had been let down by the authorities, stating that if police had taken the threat seriously, Courtney might still be alive. At number 6 is Adam Williams, Michael Smith and Connor Walsh, who were sentenced on the 18th of February. On the 17th of July 2024, at approximately 6:30 in the evening, 36-year-old Ricky Berry was fatally shot outside of his residence on Quarryside Drive in Kirkby, Merseyside. A gunman on an electric bike fired 4 shots, 3 of which struck Ricky, resulting in a fatal chest wound. A black car accompanied the bike during the incident. The subsequent investigation led to the arrest of 3 individuals: Michael Smith, who was 27 and identified as the shooter on the bike; Adam Williams, who was 26, the driver of the accompanying car; and Connor Walsh, who was 26, who was a passenger in the vehicle. Telephone records indicated that the trio had been in contact prior to the murder and had conducted a reconnaissance of the area shortly before the shooting. Forensic evidence further implicated the suspects, with DNA matching Walsh found on one of the bullet casings recovered from the scene. Following their arrests, all 3 men were charged with murder and possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life. Despite initially pleading not guilty, Smith later admitted to manslaughter and the firearm charge, though he continued to deny the charge of murder. After a nearly 4-week trial at Liverpool Crown Court, the jury found all 3 defendants guilty of murder, as well as the firearms offence, on the 14th of February. On the 18th of February, both Williams and Smith were sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years, while Walsh received a life sentence with a minimum term of 30 years. At number 7 on the list is Calogero Ricotta, who was sentenced on the 18th of February. On the 28th of May 2024 in Essex, 64-year-old builder Ricotta fatally stabbed his wife, 54-year-old Maria Nagara, and her son, 29-year-old Giuseppe Joe Moriel, at their family home on Cambridge Road. The attack occurred shortly after Maria returned home that evening, leading to a violent confrontation witnessed by a youth who was present in the house. Both victims sustained multiple stab wounds, including to their necks. The background to this tragic event was an increasingly unhappy marriage. Maria had been seeking a divorce, a move Ricotta vehemently opposed. The day before the murders, Maria confided in a friend that she was a bit scared and that Ricotta had threatened her, stating that she had to stay with him or things are going to get messy. This controlling and coercive behaviour escalated to the fatal attack when Maria attempted to leave the marriage. During the trial at Chelmsford Crown Court, Ricotta denied the charges, claiming self-defence. However, the evidence presented, including the testimonies about his controlling nature and threats, led the jury to find him guilty of 2 counts of murder, as well as 1 count of actual bodily harm to a 3rd individual who was present during the incident. On the 18th of February 2025, Ricotta was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years. At number 8 on the list is Jason Flore, who was sentenced on the 20th of February. In August 2024, a tragic incident occurred at Crawley railway station in West Sussex, where 26-year-old Flore fatally stabbed his 19-year-old partner, Stephanie Marie. The couple, originally from Mauritius, had been living in a makeshift tent near the station, and on the morning of the 18th of August, witnesses observed a heated argument between Flore and Stephanie in the station's car park. Flore was described as aggressive, while Stephanie appeared visibly upset and was partially undressed. During the altercation, Flore stabbed Stephanie in the chest, puncturing her heart. Following the attack, Flore was captured on CCTV, calmly walking away from the scene, his clothing stained with Stephanie's blood. He made a 999 call reporting that a woman had been stabbed and was not breathing, but misleadingly claimed that he needed to catch a train. The phone number used for the call was later traced back to Flore. As emergency services arrived and attempted to save Stephanie, Flore continued to wander the town, even attempting to board a bus, but was denied entry due to his blood-stained attire. Authorities launched a manhunt and Flore was apprehended near Halsler Avenue East, heading towards Three Bridges railway station approximately an hour after the incident. Upon arrest, he claimed that she did it to herself, suggesting that Stephanie had inflicted the wound. During the trial at Hove Crown Court, the jury deliberated for just over 3 hours before unanimously finding Flore guilty of Stephanie's murder. On the 20th of February 2025, Flore was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. At number 9 is Craig Curry, who was sentenced on the 27th of February. On the 23rd of August 2024, Curry murdered Neil Selkirk, a homeless man, in a park in Gateshead in Tyneside. The incident drew significant attention due to its brutality and the circumstances surrounding the crime. The attack occurred in a local park where Neil was known to frequent. Evidence was heard that Curry arrived and pitched his tent at that park, with the men initially appearing to get on. Further evidence was heard that Curry was much bigger in stature than Neil and was louder and opinionated, and they later fell out over a phone charger on the night of the 24th of August, following which Curry viciously attacked Neil, repeatedly punching him in the face before kicking and stamping on him as he fell to the ground. And this was corroborated by witnesses who reported seeing Curry engaged in that violent assault. Despite admitting to the physical altercation, Curry denied any intent to kill Neil. And during the trial, Curry's co-accused, Anthony O'Donnell, was also charged with his involvement in the murder. However, O'Donnell was acquitted of all charges, as the evidence did not sufficiently link him to the fatal attack on Neil. The court heard that Curry had a history of violence, including attacking a restaurant owner with a hockey stick and making threats to an ex-girlfriend. In February 2025, Curry was found guilty, and then on the 27th of February, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 19 years. At number 10 is Dualla Abdi and Ben Laing, who were sentenced on the 27th of February. In January 2025, 21-year-old drug dealer Abdi was convicted of the murder of a rival dealer called Tyree Scott, who at the time was aged 24, in Hounslow in West London. The incident occurred shortly before 1 a.m. on the 16th of January 2024, when Abdi fatally stabbed Scott during a confrontation. A distinctive Louis Vuitton man bag carried by Abdi played a crucial role in linking him to the crime scene. The luxury accessory which Abdi failed to dispose of was instrumental in the police investigation. Surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts identified the man bag, leading authorities to Abdi, and this evidence, combined with forensic analysis, solidified the case against him. Abdi was assisted by a getaway driver who was 24-year-old Ben Laing from Feltham, who was also charged with murder for his involvement. During the trial, the prosecution detailed how Abdi attacked Scott in a premeditated act, driven by a rivalry over drug territory. The court heard that Abdi approached Scott and, without provocation, inflicted fatal stab wounds. The brutality of the attack and the lack of remorse displayed by Abdi were emphasized throughout the proceedings. In addition to the murder charge, Abdi was found guilty of possessing a bladed article, and Laing was found guilty of murder. On the 27th of February 2025, both men were sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years. At number 11 is Harrison Lawrence Van-Pooss, who was sentenced on the 28th of February. In August 2023, 54-year-old artist and mother Claire Knights was reported missing after setting out to walk her dog from her home in Upstreet near Canterbury to Minnis Bay in Birchington. Her body was discovered 2 days later, concealed amongst reeds between St Nicholas at Wade and Minnis Bay. The investigation led to the arrest of 21-year-old Van-Pooss. On the 22nd of August 2023, a day before the murder, Van-Pooss had been reported for an incident of voyeurism, specifically upskirting a woman at a pub in Birchington. He evaded immediate arrest and spent the night in a makeshift camp near the railway line west of Birchington. On the 23rd of August 2023, as Claire walked back to her car from Minnis Bay, Van-Pooss ambushed her on an isolated footpath. He sexually assaulted her and then brutally attacked her, inflicting catastrophic injuries before hiding her body in the dike. After the assault, he took her dog to a nearby shop to buy treats, attempting to portray the animal as his own. Later that evening, police apprehended Van-Pooss in connection with the earlier incident of voyeurism. At the time of the arrest, he had Claire's dog with him. He initially feigned memory loss and attempted to mislead officers about his identity. It wasn't until Claire was reported missing that the connection between Van-Pooss and her disappearance became evident. Forensic evidence, including Claire's blood found on Van-Pooss's backpack and items he had purchased before and after the murder, discovered in his makeshift camp, linked him conclusively to the crime. Witnesses also reported interactions with Van-Pooss and the dog on the day of the murder, further implicating him. Despite initially claiming memory loss and denying the murder charge, he pleaded guilty in December of 2024, and on the 28th of February 2025 at Canterbury Crown Court, Van-Pooss was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 26 years. At number 12 is Erin McNeilly, who was sentenced on the 28th of February. On the 19th of June 2024, at approximately 11:50 p.m, Hertfordshire police responded to reports of a serious assault in Walden End in Stevenage. Upon arrival, they found 61-year-old Peter Lynch with a stab wound. The East of England Ambulance Service transported him to the hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries shortly thereafter. The Bedfordshire, Cambridge and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit launched an investigation into Lynch's death. Their inquiries led to the arrest of 34-year-old Erin McNeilly, a resident of Walden End in Stevenage, on suspicion of his murder. She was initially released on police bail while the investigation continued. On the 5th of August 2024, following extensive investigative efforts, McNeilly was formally charged with the murder of Peter. Detective Inspector Lee Martin, leading the investigation, expressed gratitude to local residents and members of the public who assisted with inquiries, emphasising the team's dedication to unearthing the events leading to Peter's death. The case proceeded to trial at Huntington Crown Court in February of 2025, and over the course of the 3 weeks, the prosecution presented evidence detailing the circumstances surrounding Peter's death and McNeilly's involvement. The jury deliberated and reached a unanimous verdict, finding McNeilly guilty of murder. On the 28th of February 2025, McNeilly, who's now 35, was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years.